American Express is cutting card limits. Are you one of those who have gotten affected? That is what we are talking about on today's episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. Let's get into it. Let me just start this podcast episode off with saying normally the show we talk about creative financing, ways for you to build out your real estate portfolio using funding and financing. And funding, for example, a lot of times consists of credit cards. So anyone I have worked with, the credit card conversation is part of it. That's nothing new. I have not stopped doing business funding. Um, as always, my business model has always been real estate paired with funding or financing to build out and leverage your portfolio. It has never been, let's just get a credit card. And that's why I have did episodes about understanding that difference because everyone is not ready for the leverage conversation. And so I want to make it very clear that this episode is not going to be three ways that if your Amex credit limit gets slashed, what you should do. Because at the end of the day, some people have gotten affected, some people haven't. Right now, currently in my creative finance circle, none of those clients, as well as the participants in the creative financing circle, have gotten affected. And so, with that being said, but it is conversation on the internet streets. Let's talk about it. I mean, it is conversation. I know on one of the socials, I made a very snarky post, and a snarky in a way, not making um, uh, a mockery or making fun of those affected. Snarky meaning I've seen this before. Depending on your age, this happened in 2008. I got my first Amex card. It was a Delta Amex Gold. I think I got that roughly in around 04, 05. I've seen this before. I've seen this before. And I say this to say, um, I'm no data analyst with American Express. Most of the people and your most famous credit expert, and I get it, everybody wants to be the Superman, or should I say the superhero to their clients. I know everyone is rich on the internet. Everybody is a eight-figure earner. I'm not here to dispute if that is real or not. But I am going to tell you that, and really the purpose of this episode is to be able to look at patterns. And I'm going to share some of the patterns that I know of that are similar to 2008. And I'm going to call a spade a spade. A lot has changed since 2008. And I'm going to go through that history of those things, as well as saying, if let's just do the math. If your credit expert is 35, back in 2008, he or she was a teenager. If your credit expert was in their 20s now, back in 2008, they were a kid. If your credit expert is at least 40, they were in their early 20s. They may not have gotten affected by the 2008 housing crash. Now, they may have if they have family who may have been involved in real estate, and or or either that maybe their family worked in real estate or banking, and they did get the remnants of it. Because at the end of the day, there are going to be people, and like I said, on a particular social platform, when I made the snarky post, People are going on about it. It didn't happen to me, this, that, and the other. Like I said, a lot of people in my creative finance circle, it didn't happen to. I'm not saying it is going to happen, but I am going to say be able to spot patterns, because if the person you're listening to don't really have data to pull from back what happened in 2008. I think my there is going to be a podcast episode, because this is a special edition. I wasn't actually even supposed to post this podcast episode. It's actually going, as I film this today, I'm going to have it uploaded today. And I say this to say wasn't supposed to be posted. Um, but due to this news, I said I have to talk about it. But I say that to say there is a particular investor that I recently interviewed, and they talk about the hits that they experienced back in 2008. So this episode is really to be able to make you aware of the patterns that are going on, especially if you don't have an end at American Express. And when I say an end, I'm not talking about your cousin is the customer service person. I'm talking about those who sit on in very big rooms with the data intelligence or what have you, to really tell you what is going on. Because at the end of the day, American Express did not make any statement regarding these cardholders limits getting cut. So let's keep that in mind. They have not made any statements with this happening. So let's get into it. As I mentioned to you, for those who don't like to be cerebral, if you don't like to think, this is not a salacious show. So, like I said, I don't have no three tips. There are a gazillion people on the, I guess, on YouTube and maybe even the podcast space who could tell you, the three ways that you can do whatever with American Express. That's not this show. This show is a show based on helping you financially, whether in real estate, whether in funding, whether in financing, and it's not going to hurt you in the long run. One thing that I can assure you, I'm going to guarantee you, you ain't never got to worry about catching a RICO charge with the information that I'm going to share with you. And I say this from a person who started a career in forensic accounting. So I've been in the space of being able to, where there has been fraud. And so that's why I said I'm not, that's not this show. That's not how I work. Those who are in the creative finance circle, I let them know there's no tricks, there's no treats. Everything is cut and dry. One thing that I can assure you is that you won't have to RICO charge if you're listening to what the information that I share. Now, what you decide to implement outside of what I'm talking about is something totally different. But let's get into it. So, like I said, seen this before, but let's go through the chain of events of what's going on, because there's a pattern that is happening. If you see me um looking at my phone, is because I want to be able to take in the data that I just wanted to make sure I fact checked it. As well as I'm going to pull in some information from, like I said, that post that I did on the social platforms. Um 2008 housing crash. Um, Even back then, limits got slashed. My card, uh, slashed. That's really what sparked me getting in the credit industry. I tell people all the time, I didn't learn this stuff from the internet. So I make that very clear. I was actually doing this in the trenches, whether for myself or for clients, because I've been a business owner since 2003. I didn't just learn this from the internet. And so, due to my financial setbacks, um, limit got slashed, car got closed. Being transparent. Well, during that time, after 2008, Dodd Frank came on the scene. And anyone who was in the lending space at that time, I was involved in real estate on the investor side, but I wasn't doing the financing portion of it. But if you were just around in that space, many people will tell you there have been people who were mortgage professionals and they talked about how their career, making X amount of dollars and down to making nothing because lending had gotten tightened. They just weren't lending. If they were lending, the criteria to even be able to qualify was so strict because Dodd-Frank pretty much had lenders by the ball. So whether it was primary market, institutional lenders, as well as the secondary market. Let's fast forward. And if you remember in 2000 and after that 2009, 10, if you know who the president is, it's not political parties. There was a particular president. Dodd-Frank came on the scene. All that happened. Well, after that, who became president after that particular president in 2010? Okay, it's the current president that we have now. Okay, lending, because that was what was promised, that lending would get loosened, and that gave birth to the fintech industry. So at that time, there were companies that were birthing this fintech space. Now fintech is a very big buzzword. Whether you're in the lending side, or I just want to make sure I'm filming, or you have been a person who have seeked out lending, you're very familiar. To be able to go to a computer and or your phone and apply for some type of financing, whether it's a loan, whether it's a mortgage, whether it's a credit card. Well, let's go back. Back in 2016, 2010 years ago, that wasn't a common practice. But there were companies that was on the forefront of being able to capitalize on this industry. One of those particular companies was Cabbage. Do you remember Cabbage? Cabbage was an online fintech company where you can get financing. You can get credit cards, what have. Now, the reason why I'm familiar with Cabbage and I followed them because at that time I had a blog, and you can be an affiliate of Cabbage. And so I had, at that time, that's when blogs were very popular. Still have that blog to this day. Don't try to go look for it because I have made sure that no imprint of myself is on there, but that blog still goes on, and it rocks today. But at that time blogs were really big, and so I was one of the affiliates of Cabbage, so I was very familiar with their criteria of being able, you had to go through a whole process to get approved or what have you, and I passed that. Well, anyway, um Cabbage was very clear on who their client base was. And Cabbage, now I'm not saying that there were no A plus um uh um I want I wanted to say another word, but that A plus people who didn't apply for a Cabbage loan or what have you. They didn't do credit cards, but they did loans. But that wasn't their meat of potatoes of who they were looking to lend to. They were looking to lend to mid-level type people, maybe in the high sixes or what have you. Not a lot of crazy derogatories. Like I said, I wasn't on the Cabbage, data and intelligence. But I was just going by the individuals who online said they got approved, and then of course the people that did get approved through my affiliate link. Well, let's fast forward, and I never forget when this happened. In 2020, American Express, because I know you're wondering, where are you going with this, Aurelia? Like I said, this is for the individuals who want to see a pattern with what is going on. This is not this is what you should do. Well, if you don't remember, if you're not familiar with Cabbage, let me share with you. American Express bought Cabbage. Now, I remember when that happened, I said, why would American Express buy Cabbage? Because Cabbage, the clients that Cabbage have, that's not the market that American Express would be interested in. Like American Express is known for top tier people, in terms of credit, income, or what have you. Like I know there's some credit guru that's right now listening and saying, "Oh, well, my people, we rob the banks or whatever." Okay, $1 trillion industry, but the Joe Schmo on the internet is robbing banks. But okay, like I said, no RICO charges here. Um, and so with that being said, um, the sale went through. After doing a deeper dive at that time in 2020, this is what American Express was interested in. And you can do your research, you can do your Googles on this. Because Cabbage got into the fintech space very early, they had state of the art technology for the whole process of automatic underwriting or what have you. It was the IP that American Express was interested in. Because why build it out on your own? Because one may say, well, American Express is $1 billion company or what have you. Why they just didn't build? Why do that? There's a company that's already been proven. They were in the forefront of when it was created. They have the data. They have, because not only was that part of it, but the talent at Cabbage was also part of the deal. The only thing American Express did not want, they did not want them PPP loans. They said, y'all can have that. So the part of their package, they didn't want anything to do with the PPP loans, but they bought everything else because they knew that Cabbage had the data and analytics or what have you. Like I said, I have it right here. So let me read it out for those who are listening. I am currently looking. I thought I had it in front of me because I want to tell you exactly what. So it said American Express acquired financial technology firm, remember fintech platform Cabbage in October of 2020 at an estimated 700 million to 800 million. The sale included Cabbage team, technology, data platform, and intellectual property, but they excluded historical pre-existing loans and paycheck protection programs. What was included? Cabbage talent, software, data platforms, and cash flow tools. That happened in 2020. It's 6 years later. You don't think they built on that? You don't think that they took the technology was there? We don't even know if Cabbage was already in the forefront of instituting AI or what have you. But let's just say they did. They already had something that was working. They had the data, they had the IP, they what have you. And now we're 6 years later and we're incorporating AI or what have you. Let me say this, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, this episode is to really give you a pattern of what's going on. um the way that we know lending and financing today is going to change in 3 to 4 within the next 5 years. It may even be quicker with AI, unless you're in this space and you eat and sleep this. And I don't mean in a way of a salacious way where you kind of just and I get it, like there's people online that's like, I ain't trying to be that smart. I that's why I said God bless the people out there. But anyway, I say this to say, if unless you were in the space and you're seeing this, I did an episode on this in 2024. not directly about Amex, but telling people that the tide is changing. Now, of course, you know, those who are part of my creative finance circle, we go deeper into it. But I said that the tide is changing. Like, anyone who's thinking that they are going to rob the banks, like I'm with what the government is doing, and I know this is a whole separate matter, but what the government is doing with the PPP loans, they partner with Palantir, I think that's how you pronounce that, AI company, to be able to seek out those who did bad loans. You don't, you don't think you don't think the credit card company's gonna do that? You don't think they got the technology to do that? Now, like I said, unless you're on the data and intelligence team at American Express, us lay people will never know. All we can do is assume. And that's why this episode is really about being in the forefront of the patterns that are taking place right now. If you remember, if you're a person of a certain age and you were aware or affected about what happened in 2008, you already see the writing on the wall. It may not be in the same way it was in 2008 with a housing crash or whatever, but there's going to be some type of hardship, and let me just say, you may not directly be affected. There are people right now saying, I'm good. Like I said, on my social posts, there's a whole dialogue of people going on about it, nothing's happening to them. Many people have even, I don't know, assumed that it was me. And then some people have even, the reason why I'm looking down, is to, read some of the comments of what some people have said. Um, and I thought people have, they said good dialogue. I mean, this thing has gotten so big. Um, One, people were talking about, well, what about those who don't have a preset limit? Some people are even so convinced that American Express cards don't even have a limit. That's not true, because I have clients that, especially if you're new into the American Express family, they may start you with a card with a limit. Everybody doesn't come into the American Express family having a limit of no limit. So there you go. A lot of times when you do become part of the family, you get a limit. uh and then, some people are saying, well, charge cards don't have no limit, only revolvers. um the thing is that I say recognize the patterns. That's really the point of what I'm saying, because changes are being made. I was on, and this is not related to American Express, but this just shows you the way these changes are being made. Um, was on a call yesterday with a credit bureau. I will not disclose who they are, but those who are in my creative finance circle, I am going to share with them some of the slides or what have you. But this particular credit bureau is um, pretty much selling themselves to the mortgage industry lenders, because this was about how this particular credit bureau can be able to, what they're putting in place with technology, talking about this is the old way that we've been able to do we've been doing stuff, and this is the new way. And then they went into how now we're in a place where people have different sources of income. There's different ways that people may hide stuff. The point of that whole um PowerPoint presentation from this particular credit bureau, because I'm not going to say, was all about them um, working towards getting the business of mortgage lenders. Because at the end of the day, although um, the housing secretary um, has ruled that mortgage lenders not only have to use FICO, I mean, they can use Vantage Score along with FICO, but at the end of the day, FICO has data. They have a proven track record. These credit bureaus are really trying to get into this space to prove that they can be able to perform. It doesn't help that they said one of those credit what last week, one of the credit bureaus, the way they were calculating the credit scores were, you know, were not correct. Now, I don't want to make this a credit class, but prior to that mandate being put in place, you may not have known this, but the credit bureaus were never a furnisher of giving you a score. That was always FICO. They only had the data. FICO gave you the score based on that data. And of course, Vantage Score has always been around, but it was never a measuring tool that lenders were using. I say this to say, unless you are in the space and you are eating and sleeping this to see the patterns. And the only reason why, I do this is because it keeps me sharp on what is going on to begin to, press if I'm working with a lender to get an idea of with the underwriter, what are some of the things that you all are looking at? Because all these things are being taken place now. And if you're not in the industry, and I'm not talking about from the industry of you listen to somebody else content and you respin it and then add Claude on top of it and listen to what Chat GPT and Claude is saying. I'm talking about companies that are doing this on a massive level, billion-dollar industries. This is a trillion, the lending industry is a trillion-dollar industry. Trillion-dollar industry. So you mean to tell me some influencer, expert, whatever you want to call it, is that smart? Come on. Like I tell people all the time, the information that I'm gathering has nothing to do with my own results, because my results are my results. Like, my results can't help no one else, but there are results of the industry. The industry, that's what you measure yourself against. What in the industry, what are the ways, what are the measuring tools that they're using to be able to get approvals, to get funding, to get financing, to not get caught behind the eight ball? Not what I'm doing. That don't even make sense, because unless everything is the same. And I'm not talking about, oh, your credit score is this, you got this much money. I'm just talking about the mindset, the thought, the experience. Those are the things. And everyone is not going to have the same level playing field. Even on this post, on the social post, one person, I just hate this stuff gets buried and I can't find it. But I remember seeing it. It was one person who said, well, because I made an example about, you could have a $75,000 limit. It got cut to 50, but you had a revolving balance of 55. So already, your scores dropped because now it looks like you are over the utilization. The person made a comment about who got 75K and as a limit on American Express, like who's carrying that much debt. So that's why I say this to say, and I know I may be everywhere. This episode is just me just talking. Like this ain't no learning episode. So I get it. Some people they take notes, but this ain't the one. The note. This is just me. This is me talking. Um, Everyone is not working from the same level playing field. Like we all are not. And that is why following the patterns matter. So you can protect yourself, because you could be working with someone who their limits may have never got affected, but your limit get affected, and you're in the middle of a rehab. You got sold. You could be this big shot real estate investor. This the big shot credit person told you, and you holding these credit limits, and you in the middle of a rehab, and they told you, Mr. Big Shot real estate investor, your limits get slashed. But they limits ain't get slashed. So what advice are they gonna give you? They limits fine. Your limits slashed. Gone. The amount of credit you thought you were going to be able to have access to finish your rehab doesn't exist. What advice you gonna give to the big shot, the big shot credit person? What are they gonna tell you? Big shot real estate person. What are they gonna tell you? Oh, is this the time when they say, oh, you should have capital to the side? That when that conversation comes in? Because you were sold that all you needed was a credit card and a dream to win in real estate. And I say this to say, um, salacious advice in this market, it can harm you. It can hurt you. Like it really can. So that's all I have to say about the matter. I'm already 31 minutes, so great stopping point. But that's the whole point. Look at the patterns of what's going on. Look at the patterns of what's going on, and make sure that you are taking notice. Now, if you feel like you can call American Express, and the person on the other side of the phone who makes about $15 or $16 an hour is going to give you sound advice, and they're not on no data intelligence team, they got a script that they're going to read to you, they're going to tell you, what you need to do. But I'm saying in this particular market, this is nothing new. This is not that this is not the end of it. It's going to get very interesting. So all I'm saying is keep, stay alert, know what's going on. This is not the market to be overzealous with what you're doing financially. This is not the market to follow salacious advice that where there is no real framework. I don't want to say I get it, because that just ain't me. That ain't nothing that's ever enticed me, because you know the way money is created, and I did a episode on that. I literally had a private lender on here who you don't even have to listen to me. That's why I'm bringing it to you. You ain't gotta listen to me. Listen to people out there who got some age, they got some experience, they're creating money. So, whereas if there's people out there who are creating money, why are you out there trying to literally end your financial livelihood by trying to, like I said, do stuff that can either put you behind bars or really set you back financially? So until the next time, as always, um, lenders are still lending. But if you want sound advice, um, go to neverloseadeal.com. There, you'll learn more about how I can help you and your real estate journey when it comes to funding and financing. No fluff, no salaciousness, real ethical advice that your future self will definitely thank you for. So, once again, neverloseadeal.com, and I will see you in the next episode.